Hello, I'm Sarah Jensen, editor of OEM Off Highway, and welcome to Design and Engineering Insights. Today, I'll be speaking with Will Healy, Marketing Manager Americas, Bailiff Worldwide, about trends the company is currently seeing in the heavy equipment industry. So thank you for joining me today, Will.
Yeah, really excited to be here. Thanks for having me, Sarah.
So maybe just to start the conversation, what are maybe just some of the biggest trends you guys are currently seeing in the industry, or maybe like key ones you guys are focusing on at the moment?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'd be remiss to not mention disruption in supply chain as a major trend. I think all of us are talking about that all the time.
Yeah.
There are some positive things coming from that, and we're going to work through it together. And I think our supply chain will be more robust as we work through that. But I'd be remiss to not mention that as a major trend that I see impacting what we're doing and how we're doing it. I think the other thing that I see really, urbanization is changing a lot of the things that we're doing, but be it agriculture and how we get food to people and how we process food and how we deliver food and make sure it stays, so that we can get it into the urban centers where people are. I also see trends towards more technology. I mean, with the generational changes that we see with, I like to call it the silver tsunami. I stole it from someone. I wish I could tell you who, but I really like it, so I use it all the time. The silver tsunami is a huge trend for us as baby boomers retire. Gen Xers, I love you, but there's not enough of you. So the millennials are really coming to power and having a lot of leadership and decision making roles. And Gen Z's entering our workforce. These Gen Zs are now 23 years old, and so they're entering our workforce, and they've been in our workforce 5 years if you have positions that don't require a college degree. So they have different expectations and requirements, and so they are having a big impact on what we do and how we do things.
Okay. So what are maybe some ways that companies could help attract those types of younger generations, or what are ways the industry in general could kind of overcome that or help attract people, or kind of what can we do to bring people in more?
It's a great question. There are a couple of things that I think are most important. The first one is we have to create our leadership pipeline, and millennial leaders are a thing we have to do. So if your organization is currently all boomers, you have an organizational problem, because what we've learned about Generation Z is about 1997 to 2012, somewhere in that range. Generation Z does not want to work for boomers. They want to work for millennials. And if you try to have a Gen Z work for a boomer, they will just leave. So you've got to really, in your organization, put millennial leaders in place. And millennial leaders need specific things. They need mentoring, and they want mentors, and they want regular feedback. You can't just save up all your feedback to the annual performance review. You've got to be giving regular mentoring and feedback to a millennial, and they want that, and they need that. So millennial leaders, need to be lifted up in our organizations, because we're bringing in millennials and we're bringing in Gen Z into our workforces. I think the other thing we have to do is we have to look at adding diversity to our organizations. More women into these types of jobs and these roles. Women are wildly underrepresented in these organizations and in our industry in general. And so getting more women into our organization not only was the right thing to do, but actually companies who have at least 30% women in their leadership find that they have 15% more profitability, from a couple of studies from Deloitte, I think is where the study comes from. So the more women and diversity you have in your organization, the more profitability you have, and the more productivity you have, and the more ideas you have. And so the more effective you are at product development and all the things that can create positive opportunities in your organization. Women can do that, and diversity in general does that. So one thing about Gen Z that I'm blown away by is 18% of boomers self-identify as a minority. 18%. 48% of Generation Z self-identifies as a minority. And so Generation Z sees themselves as a global citizen, as a minority most, and they're involved in these kinds of topics. And so if you don't have more diversity in your organization at all levels of your organization, you're going to really struggle to keep and retain and hire and recruit new young people into your company. And millennials want this too, but not on the scale that Generation Z does. So, I mean, just back to your whole question, I think you have to really look at the generational changes and how you embrace Gen Z and diversity in your organization. How do you raise up millennial leaders? And then the last thing is your technology strategy. The third thing is your technology strategy has a direct impact on recruiting and retention of young people. And so they've had the cell phone in their life, their whole life, right? I mean, they've had technology. Generation Z has always had YouTube. I mean, my 3-year-old son is never going to remember a time without voice activated AI, like Alexa and Google, right? Like the generation, their entire life is technology. So when they come to your company, if you aren't using technology, they're not going to want to work there. So we really have to think about, how do we get more diversity in our organization, whether it's women or minorities? How do we raise up millennial leaders? Because people want millennials to be leaders. And what is our technology strategy? It's vital to our HR strategy.
Definitely. So are there certain types of technologies you may see, like maybe automation or the use of augmented reality or virtual reality, that could maybe help with that, and just in the industry in general?
Totally. There's so many cool things right now. I could talk forever on that. I mean, if you start naming things, the ability to do 3D printing, I'm sure you've seen or written an article about like 3D printing buildings and being able to do different shapes and different possibilities. I mean, 3D printing out at a work site, if a component breaks of a machine, instead of waiting for the component to ship, overnight and paying a bunch, just print the component and use it until you can get the part. Like, there's so many things that technology can be used to do that are just impressive. I mean, the one that I will say, I just saw a demonstration from a company called Newforge. They make augmented reality software, and it works with the glasses, the like heads up display. And I actually just put a video on LinkedIn about it if you want to check it out, Will Healy. But this headset, I mean, lots of people, make software for these headsets, but this was really interesting because maybe you have to check a piece of equipment in, right? Like a complex piece of equipment, you got to make sure this valve's closed, and you got to make sure that these things are down, or you have to make sure certain parts of the equipment are in certain states, or certain values on pressure dials, or whatever it is. We can actually set up training through an augmented reality headset where they get a display and it steps them through, shows them pictures of how to verify it's closed. What does closed look like? What does open look like? It can show them pictures in their heads up display, and they can step through the machine and do the steps. And it's just incredible how augmented reality is taking training from like days or weeks to minutes or hours.
Right.
And I think that's the most incredible part of augmented reality. I mean, people can talk about all kinds of crazy things. Like, I've seen some cool stuff where they overlay a drawing over the real world, and you can do, like, those things are crazy to me. They're cool, but like just simple like operator guidance, right? Like operator training, like give operators instructions so that they can do more things and the training takes less. I mean, I keep cycling back to the young people, but like young people want to learn. I have a problem. I want to YouTube it and watch a 2-minute video and solve my problem, and then I want to move on until I have the next problem. And so, like augmented reality, they don't go and sit in a training for a month and then not use the training for a month and then have to need it one day. They want to just like have the training presented to them when they need the training. It's called micro learning. And I think that's really that's kind of something I see like with augmented reality. I mean, you asked about what other technologies do I see. I think just electrification of vehicles
Mm,
in general is really powerful. We have all of these older workers and they have really great intelligence. They know our business, they know our processes. And I don't want to lose those workers,
right.
but maybe they can't do the physical work
Mhm,
anymore that they used to be able to do, lifting things and moving it around and all that. So how can we electrify vehicles to make that worker's job easier? Like, let's get rid of the dull, dirty, dangerous tasks that they have to do, and let's keep engaging those workers. I love there's a quote from one of my friends. He works for Universal Robotics, but he always talks about how can we use automation to extend the
mm,
career of the worker.
right.
So we've got this guy. He's got tons of experience, or gal, but mostly
Mhm,
guys. We've got these people
mm,
with all this experience, but they can't take the physical labor anymore. So how can we automate, not to get rid of that job, but to make that person's job easier so they can
right.
stay with us longer? That's
Mhm,
really like when we invest in technology that way, I think that's really powerful. Not to think of it as eliminating workers, but about extending the careers of the workers we have. I really
mhm,
like, or making the careers of the workers we have more interesting, or
right.
using their brains, right?
Mhm,
I think that's really what's really cool about what's going on right now. And so many technologies allow that. I mean, machine vision, and I've seen some cool exoskeleton things. Have you
mm,
seen these? I'm not
yes,
talking about
yeah.
like Avatar, like robot fights and stuff. That's not what I'm talking about. But
Yeah,
there's like lifting assist
yes,
technologies
yep.
and overhead arm technologies. If you're working, there's a lot of cool technology out there that really is making this possible. Whether it's sensors or machine vision or 3D printing or AR or virtual twins or uh, exoskeletons and
Mhm,
traceability solutions. I mean, when you have fleets all over the place, knowing where equipment is and how long it's been used and when we need to do maintenance, there's so many cool technologies, and it may feel a little overwhelming. And always, what I always tell people is like, let's pick something and get started, even
mhm,
if it's something small, right? Like I think the
mhm,
AR headset for work instruction for operators, I think is a really easy, approachable something that somebody could start right away. I think condition monitoring on devices, just how's my machine working? Is there more vibration than there was last week?
mhm,
Like there are some basic places that we can start that create high value for people and can improve the work of our workers.
mhm. Definitely, definitely. So do you maybe see the Internet of Things helping to integrate it as well, some of those technologies, or further expand them, or what role could that also help play in the industry?
Yeah, totally. I think connected devices is such a huge thing. The
Mhm,
ability I mentioned, the ability to see our fleets and the status of our equipment. And what if I could tell you that this electric motor on this machine is starting to go bad or overheat or vibrate too much in its process? Like that's good information to know. I may not
mhm,
need to stop the job right now, but the next time I check that piece of equipment back in, or the next time I have a maintenance tech out there to fix something else, I
mhm,
can send them to go look at that. And then she can say, hey, oh yeah, this needed a little tweaking or it needed some grease or the bearings going bad. Let's take this out of commission and let's get it fixed. So, there's a lot of things that we can do to use the data we have to know more. And I'm really impressed by like the ability to look at asset utilization, like
mhm,
how much is our equipment being used and how like, it's 100% on a site. But if it's only used 5 or 10% on the site, you're really only using it 5 or 10%. Like, how can
right,
we be utilizing our assets more and getting more value out of the equipment we have rather than having it just sit? Could we be having it do a different task, or could we be utilizing it somewhere else instead? Looking at the flow of our projects, and the more data we collect, the more insights we can get. And so things like asset utilization and just knowing where assets
mhm,
are, tracking
right,
assets. I think getting data out of individual sensors or pieces of equipment on the
mhm,
machine and then getting that reported so that we can make decisions remotely. All of that has a lot of value to us,
Mhm.
right? And even inside our, if we have some fixed facilities where, we have equipment, but we have a facility around any place where someone doesn't want to go, like climbing up on the top of a tower or out to an outbuilding where there's a pump house for, water or whatever we have.
Mhm.
No one wants to go out to those places
Right.
and check, is the pump still working? Are the motors good? Are they vibrating a bunch or shaking
Mhm.
around a bunch? Like we could collect some data from those things and then send that up into the cloud, or we can send that to our local network, or we can just collect that data and then know, oh crap, that pump's vibrating more than usual. Someone's got to go out there.
Mhm.
So, but I gotta hit on one more technology I totally forgot,
Yeah,
and I
no,
gotta make sure I point out that's so
yeah.
cool. I've seen some incredible things with drones too, by
Mm,
the way, and drones for inspection. And
yes.
so I've seen some for inventory management, some cool ones. I saw a Conag right before the pandemic,
Mm,
um, where they can go out and survey a stockyard and say, hey, here's the stuff I have out in the stockyard, or I'm looking for the next part in a construction project. Where is that part out in my
mm.
storage lot? And instead of someone wandering around looking at part numbers, we could send out a drone to look out at part numbers. Or I've seen some cool things where confined spaces where we could send, I don't know if you've seen Spot the Robot
Yep,
Dog or any of these ones, like you
yep.
send that into the confined space, you inspect what's got to happen before you send a human into that space into a
Mhm.
risky situation, or use a drone to go up to the top of a tower, or to inspect the top of a really big, you saw some huge excavators at the
Yeah,
mine expo this
yeah,
week. Like, there's huge equipment. Inspecting sometimes parts of this equipment's really hard.
yeah.
So let's use a drone. We can take pictures. We can
Mhm.
save those pictures for historical comparison. And then we can also use that to prepare our work so someone isn't up there looking, making a plan, coming down, getting their stuff, going back up there. They just have to go up there once and do the work. And so there's a lot less risk when we use
Mhm.
drones and things like Spot the Robot Dog
Mhm.
to do some of the work and some of the inspection beforehand. I think those kinds of technologies are really cool.
Mhm. Agreed. Yeah, they actually had a couple of the Spot robots at Mine Expo walking
So
around
cool.
the show floor. So,
That's
um,
awesome.
yeah. All right. Well, I think just kind of the last question I had was maybe, what do you think will maybe be the biggest change to occur in the maybe coming years in the heavy equipment industries?
I think we all have to electrify. I,
Yeah.
I think we've been able to dodge that for a long time. And when I look at what's going on, the workforce problems that we have, the silver tsunami, the retirements of boomers, the honestly in the United States, the shortage of labor, like in the agriculture
Mhm.
market, we have to automate. We have to
Mhm.
automate processes that used to be
Yeah.
manual, and we have to electrify equipment so we can get more information, because we're going to have less techs to work on equipment. So we can't have them just randomly doing preventative maintenance. We need to be able to know the status of the machines, predict what's going to go wrong, and have them only working on truly
Mhm.
failing things. So, I look at electrification. It's going to add automation that's going to make
Mhm.
extend the life of those workers. It's going to get rid of the dull, dirty, dangerous jobs. It's going to attract millennials and Gen Z by electrifying and adding automation. So if you're doing precision agriculture, or you're doing robotic agriculture, or you're electrifying a construction piece of equipment, um, those things have to happen
Mhm.
because of those generational changes, because of our workforce shortages. I mean, all of these things it's kind of all coming back together right at the end
Right.
here. But all of those trends that we see about getting food out of the fields into the cities, and working with the transition of the workforce, those
Mhm.
all come together. That electrification of vehicles and automation of processes, it's here. It's something we've talked about for a very long
Right.
time,
Yeah.
but it's really here now, and I think the pandemic accelerated it for sure.
Mhm. Yeah, agreed. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today and provide some insights into what you're seeing in the industry.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was really fun.